The Maryland Community Church here in Terre Haute has made catching a Sunday service as easy with the click of a button. It's so easy, you can watch it at home. Your phone can cause you a lot of problems while you're on the road. A bill at the State House is working its way through to provide more rules for using the phone while you're behind the wheel. I'll tell you more about it coming up next. This is how many students tune into school these days, through Zoom. And yes, while this may be the new classroom, South Vermilion school leaders are making sure their students have the best gear with this technology grant. I did have a moment to speak with Sister Barbara Batista, and she says right now she's filled with an empty feeling and a feeling of sadness after having to watch Keith Nelson die. These are just some of the many protesters, and I want you to take a look at some of the many signs that they're holding. But I want to dial in on this sign, and this is Tony. And Tony, tell me just a little bit about what your sign says and what it represents to you. If you've been to Honey Creek Commons, then you probably had to dodge this area. No, it's not a crater, but it's a pothole. This is what the front of the building looks like. It looks like it's in good condition. But if we head to the back, it's a hazard. Just take a look at some of the damage so far. Crystal Mathers Lawson says the scariest thing happened to her as a mother. Her daughter, Madeline, was standing right here on their front porch when she was abducted. But with quick thinking and a watchful community, she was brought home safely.
Why? You wonder why. Why did this happen?
Emotional, but grateful. Crystal Mathers Lawson says she hugs her daughter Madeline a little tighter now.
I think we're all just kind of shocked with it and glad she's home and glad that she was able to do something so brave.
Just days ago, the unthinkable happened. Mathers Lawson says she had just gotten to work. Her two daughters were home alone. She says Madeline had walked outside to check the mail, but never came back inside.
I had got the first call from my other daughter, Layla, and she said, Maddie's in the trunk of a car.
The person had drove off. Police say the person was driving a Chevy model vehicle. But with quick thinking, Madeline was able to escape by pulling the emergency trunk release. She then called her sister and neighbor close by.
It's hard to seem real, you know, as a parent. It's hard to think it's real until you're outside with her and she's scared to death, and then you're like, this is real. Mathers Lawson says this has put everything into perspective for her. Her message to everyone is to be more vigilant, even if you're in the comfort of your own home. I mean, it can be gone in a minute that you don't think, a minute that you don't look. Count your blessings that we're all sitting here. Police say they're still looking for this person. They ask if you know anything or have any leads, contact them at the Clay City Police Department. Reporting in Clay City, I'm Richard Solomon, News 10. It's his final call to service.
Unit 347, firefighter John Trout is out of service. He has gone home. May he rest in peace.
A homecoming celebration for Terre Haute hero John Schaafstal. The virus that claimed his life also prevented his family and community from having a traditional service. The entire parking lot of West Vigo High School packed. People in their cars practicing social distancing, listening to the service on the radio or watching it streamed online. Others wearing black face masks.
If you called, he was there. You can obviously see how many people he helped or been around or grew up with.
Someone who wasn't able to make it to the funeral, John's mother, who's battling the same virus that took her son's life. His father pleading for prayer.
I know John's looking after his mom. I don't think I could go through another one of these. Please help me take care of her.
Firefighters passing by his casket, tossing out white carnations as a final goodbye. A special funeral procession traveled from West Terre Haute to Fire Station 5, passing under a garrison flag. The people he served lighting the way. Schaafstal's final stop, Fire Station 5, where he served for nearly 12 years. His brothers in the department saluting him. His fire chief issuing one last order.
John had a saying, you never know when it's your time to go until God spins his Rolodex and pulls your name. Rest easy, my brother. We got it from here.
For some, the March for Equality is just beginning.
We want this! We want this! We want this!
Indiana State fall athletes marching for social injustice. Leading the charge, Indiana State University football players Makai Ware, Mike Thomas, and Dante Hendricks.
I'm a black man and I have to deal with injustice. We're talking about police brutality and overall just black oppression. I can make a stand right now, make a change right now. Maybe my kids and grandkids don't have to deal with that.
This protest is happening several weeks after the original ones, following the death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. Many behind me say this conversation is far from over. The three players wanted to have a march back in June, but the timing wasn't right. Ware says they wanted the entire team to be a part of this. They were able to reach other athletes after countless hours of Zoom calls, discussing topics like Juneteenth and Black Lives Matter. Mike Thomas says this is unity.
I think it had to happen now in order to show that the solution is perseverance. We ought to hate injustice because we recognize injustice, and we ought to fight against it.
The group marched from the Vigo County Courthouse to ISU's Charles E. Brown African American Cultural Center. Coaches and school leaders spoke along the way.
These young men are more than athletes. They're young African Americans whose lives matter.
For Dante Hendricks, it's bigger than sports.
We hear you cheer for us on the football field, but when we're in the community and we don't have our uniform on, we need you to cheer for us in the community. If you just come together and love each other, we can make such a big difference in this world.
In Terre Haute, Richard Solomon,